Well, good morning. It's Richard Pears from Finextra TV, and I'm delighted to be joined today on this cold and frosty morning here in England with Priyank Patwa, Grace Beanie, and Amogh Borkar, the triumphant winners of the inaugural SustainableFinance.Live Hackathon, which was run in November 22 in London. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Richard.
Good morning.
Good to see you. So just for those that don't know, SustainableFinance.Live, the conference was in place. Running in parallel was a hackathon, which is a way of bringing together ideas and technical people to solve challenges related to sustainable finance. Three key themes that we were focused on: data, risk, and financial instruments. And we had a great response for our inaugural hackathon. We had a lot of teams join in. We had something like 6 teams present on the last day. So, you know, you're not just winners by default. You've cut through a pretty big pack and some pretty large firms there as well with established ideas. And I think, as I understand it, you actually all came together on the day for the very first time. So there was nothing pre-canned here. Priyank, tell us first of all a little bit how you guys all got together on the day.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I think it was just me who turned up. I knew Amogh, and Amogh was a familiar face in the meeting, but there were a few others, and we got together. Grace, we had never met before, and there were also some other team members, and we were trying to figure out what exactly we will do. And for a large part, we were trying to describe what the problem could be, where the data is, and how to do it, and what to do it. So we came a long way from norming, storming, and forming, I guess.
Yeah, fantastic. And Grace, so you sort of, you know, turn up in this place and trying to find people with a sort of similar kindred spirit. How did it feel for you?
Yeah, it was definitely a different experience, I think, going to something. So I kind of went along on my own, but then, you know, Priyank and Amogh were really lovely, and we had some other team members who ended up not kind of staying the course because it didn't quite fit in with their company. So yeah, the day itself was a bit of a journey. We spent a lot of time being quite stressed that we didn't really have that kind of guiding idea. And I think once the idea kind of locked into place, I think everything else started to come together really nicely.
Fantastic. Well, look, let's discover what that idea was. So you're now called Geopedia Labs. The idea was democratizing geospatial data. So data, as I said, was one of the key problems, and you could apply that however you wanted to. Priyank, tell us a bit about this, if you would.
Sure. I think one of the challenges in the ESG space, sustainability space generally, is the myth that there is not enough data or there is a lot of data. And what we were thinking about is how do we get on with the problem and focus on solutions? How do we solve that and not worry about the challenges? And one of the areas is geospatial, where it is known to be having a lot of potential. However, it is sort of a niche area, and only a few people with a lot of expertise, data scientists like Amogh, Grace, have the privilege to be able to solve that. So our idea was, how do we make it easier for many more? And that's what we started working on.
Fantastic. So this is bringing this wonderful data which is emerging from satellites and geospatial, as you say, but a lot of people don't quite know how to get that into their spreadsheets, if you like, you know, to do the financial analysis. So Grace, how did you go about cracking this problem? Very kind of Priyank to land that on your table. How did you start?
Yeah, so I have a fair bit of experience working with satellite data, so I, you know, kind of came into it knowing kind of, you know, where to look and what to do. But even then, it's pretty overwhelming with the multitude of different satellites, the different metrics. A lot of the interfaces for getting the data are pretty not user friendly. So just, you know, the first step was just, you know, downloading it in a kind of large enough sample to do something interesting with, and then we also were thinking about how are we going to kind of add value to this product. And the idea we kind of came up with was kind of intersecting, say, like a drought indice, and intersecting it with kind of geographic regions. We focused on Argentina, so essentially kind of the local authority kind of regional boundaries. So we wanted to both turn this unstructured data into a structured data at this kind of regional boundary level, and then also intersect it with a land cover map, so we could then distill down to, say, just the agricultural regions or just the forest regions. And I think this is where we think our value add comes in, both in providing a platform to do this kind of easily, but also kind of cutting these metrics in different ways that make more sense for investors.
Amazing. So yeah, and again, if people are sort of tuning into the idea, ESG we talk about, which is primarily non-financial reporting data disclosed by companies. The beauty of this whole area is it kind of gets us a world view on what's going on, so we can, if you like, have a check and balance on what companies are reporting. So really crucial problem statement that we loved to see addressed. Amogh, so as it came over to you, what happens with that data, the operational side of it? What's your role in this problem statement?
Right. Thanks, Richard. And I think once the data has been brought in, I think the specific problem that I was looking at is how do you then democratize this, because and it's in a very structured format once it comes out after it's processed, but then there's still a lot of slicing and dicing that people would want to do with it. And having worked in the space for a while, I realized that in satellite data, it's not just difficult for the business people, it's also sometimes difficult for data scientists to work with, and then and they would really appreciate an interface that gives them the ability to just look at the data, point towards it, download it, and also have the ability to visualize the data or overlay it with a different kind of a geometry or a different kind of map, and aggregate it in the way they want, and then further use it. So that's the specific area that I was focused in building, which is essentially a web app that allows people to work with this data, and also to slice and dice it, interact with it, and then share it along.
So in a sense, what you're saying is you're taking it away from sort of a very arcane and specialist capability with lots of sort of stages of loading of the data and interpretation, and not taking it as far as kind of just your simple I don't know, sort of Google Analytics, but going towards that spectrum of big chunks of data being much more easily analyzable by just a layman or a specialist business person, as opposed, where do we get to in terms of your destination, in terms of the usership?
So, right. Ideally, I think we were trying to look at a whole spectrum of these users. Of course, ideally we would want to have this for a layman. He would have the ability to at least visualize the data and then work with it and look at what it feels like. But we also sort of kept some capability for a practitioner, because they would want to, an advanced user would want to sort of upload their own geometries and then work with it in a different way. So essentially our solution, it has sort of different modules or tabs, which are sort of catering to different kinds of users.
Gotcha. Now, Priyank, you've been in the financial services industry for quite some time. Where do you sort of see the application of this? And if you take it forward from the end of the hackathon, you've only been working on it a week, but what can you see the future of this solution being in the financial services industry and elsewhere?
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the key challenges with the financial services industry and all the data that we look at is we want objective information. We want information and data and insight that is not biased and is telling us a story. However, crunching that story is a challenge. And let's just to take a step back. What are these satellite data sets? These are images. And one image could be, imagine a map with hundreds of dots on it, and you would then get thousands of those images. And that's just telling you where are lights, for example, in a region, or where has been the drought in that region. And then you want to overlay that with a country or a city or a region. Now, trying to combine that, process that, do that on a real-time basis, on a regular basis, is a huge operation. But once you do that, it is giving a very outside-in view on a firm, on an asset, on a country, on a farmland, many, many things. There are so many applications that we could imagine right away. And we are probably not the only ones thinking about it. What's great about this space is the data is becoming cheaper and cheaper and easier over a period of time. I almost feel the geospatial is the next solar panel revolution. How solar panels have become so easy and accessible and everywhere, that's how you would have. But the challenge remains, how do you make it useful? And how do you get financial modelers, investment folks use it? And that's the big hurdle that we are trying to address. And our vision is make that possible for not only one data set, but many more, and make it, even as Amogh and Grace were suggesting, you could also package it such that they can straight away connect to the product and they get some outcome at the end. It's quite seamless. So there's multitude of ways this can expand, and that's what excites us. And that's why we named it as Geopedia Labs. So it's the kind of the Wikipedia of geodata.
Yeah. Fantastic. Better check that name hasn't been taken already, but it sounds like a good one to me. Grace, let's move on to the process. So you're at Cambridge. I don't think I did my introductions particularly well at the beginning, but you're a PhD at Cambridge University. Priyank, as I said, from the financial services industry and a sustainability thought leader in financial services. And Amogh, you with all your experiences you've told us around data science. So as a PhD student coming into a situation like this, what is this kind of hackathon, meeting business and technical people around a specific problem space, what does it bring to your thoughts, your studies, and the things you're passionate about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Richard. I think it was really nice to meet people from a much more varied background. I think, within Cambridge there's great diversity, but especially within computer science, everyone's so in the space that you kind of forget maybe what even data scientists who are not in this kind of geospatial space, you forget that, not everyone kind of has this level of kind of knowledge. So it was quite cool to kind of see pretty clear applications of stuff that I hadn't thought that people might find interesting. So I think that was quite eye-opening from that respect.
Okay, nice. And Amogh, obviously we work with NEA One, who are the providers of the hackathon platform. And of course, the beauty of that is they bring a lot of data sets, brought a lot of APIs and various tech providers. Were you able to utilize that in your process? I mean, not everybody has to be technical. Some can work just at the problem and solution, the business model. I think you guys went relatively into the tech though, didn't you? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, and yeah, we did sort of initially we found a lot of geospatial data on the NEA One platform, and that's sort of what got us excited about looking at this particular area, and also sort of was in line with our collective expertise as a team, which is why we found this idea quite useful. Another interesting thing was we actually met Coram, who was one of the mentors on the panel, and he's a sovereign risk analyst as well. But this was one of his ideas that he sort of came and explained to us, and we sort of found that this was quite an interesting one for us to do, because when we looked at the industry, there were very few other companies that were providing enough off-the-shelf solution for this kind of a problem, and it was sort of a gap as it looked like, and that was quite interesting for us to pick up on the day.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that was great. You had, as you said, you had sort of sovereign asset managers there. You had data scientists, you had geospatial engineers and technology folks just on the mentoring side. So that was hopeful, as well as we shouldn't forget on the unconference, where we had Mitesh helping people with ideation. Priyank, where does this go from here, and what are you looking for from what this experience? Do you sort of finish and that's the end of it, or given that you've just come out with the best brand name ever, surely it's going to be a unicorn by next Tuesday, isn't
it? Yeah, it's I've had experience of getting excited with lots of ideas and creating many products like this. One of the key challenges and the key success factors is how consistently can we put an effort behind it, and how do we now channel our energies and continue along with our busy lives. So that's going to be one of the things for us from a more personal perspective to decide, and how do we make that, and we are already kind of thinking about it. One thing that I also enjoyed about this whole experience was the amount of simplicity and the amount of ease with which we were working together. So that excites me as a team, that there is no sort of egos or that. I guess with any product or any solution, it's a lot about the team, and then comes the technology, and then comes the problem statement. And we've got, I believe, a fantastic team. So we're super excited, super keen to see how we can take this forward, and it's let's watch the space.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, there were great teams, you know, from Deloitte, from Genpact, from other organizations. We looked at a whole bunch of criteria. You know, the judges were looking at the business idea, the technical implementation, presentation, feasibility, scalability, and the potential to have impact. Your idea was a clear, you know, problem statement, which we were also thrilled that you'd all come together on the day. So congratulations, you are the winners of the inaugural SustainableFinance.Live 2022 hackathon and conference. You know, well done you, and if we can do anything to help, we certainly will. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you. Thank you for the approach.
Thank you.